Can you give us a bit uh, more details about the idea validation stage? So when you have this idea, so how did you validate and made sure that there is some demand or for this idea and that it can be converted into a viable product?
So that's a super good question, and this is like a one thing that I would advise to anyone, especially people who love writing code and do something, is to before you do something to actually validate it. And sometimes what I'm trying to explain to people right now, as I understand a bit more, is that you don't have to have anything written down. You don't have to write any code before you can even sell something.
The bootstrapping story of NewsCatcher is one of the most unique I've ever heard. The founder initially set out to create something interesting without really any plans to turn it into a company. Well, they used their existing skill set and they found something that they could build. So they built an MVP and put it out there. From those humble beginnings, NewsCatcher has grown to serve incredible enterprise customers like the US Department of State, BBC, MIT, and many more. This journey is truly incredible. So there is one thing that's in common with the founders of Airbnb. Like them, these founders have never given up. Tune in to discover.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Everyday Leadership. In today's episode, we will spend some time talking to Artem Bugara. Artem is the founder and CEO of NewsCatcher. This company is based in France and they build APIs for many interesting use cases to acquire intelligence from real-time news. So we'll sort of talk to Artem and get all those insights and all that went behind in creating this all the way from an idea to a product to acquiring early customers. I've seen some big ticket names there, so we'll sort of understand what went into acquiring them. So lots of interesting lessons to be learned, so stay tuned. And with that, so Artem, can you just introduce yourself? Give us a bit of a context of who you are and what's your backstory and how did you end up being where you are today?
Sure, and thanks for an invite. Well, I'm not too much social on LinkedIn and other places, nor is NewsCatcher. So I guess that's fair. We don't have that much that much attention, but we actually have one of the coolest stories, I think, about like the company and getting actually to the stage that we are. So yeah, hopefully viewers and listeners gonna be interested about that. So first of all, I'm not in France anymore. I right now live in Warsaw in Poland. We moved here with my wife about 2 months ago. Actually, yeah, almost exactly 2 months ago, and we love it. My co-founder Maxime, he's still in Paris, France, and he's a French citizen right now, and he lives in Paris, and he doesn't want to move anywhere. So before that, for I think just like a little bit over a year, we both were in Paris, but honestly speaking, we don't have any kind of physical one place headquarter. Everyone is working remotely. So right now, Maxim is the only person working from Paris. I'm the only one working from Warsaw. And we have people in Germany, Ukraine, Lebanon, India. And we used to have some in Kenya, I think. So yeah, we all spread around the globe. About myself, so I'm a first-time founder. I think it's fair to say I had a few really small like side projects, but never like I spent probably like a couple of weeks for them. So NewsCatcher is the first startup for myself, and it's the first one for Maxime as well. I know Maxime for I think over 15 or 16 years. I've met him at school in 2000, I think something like 2000 and maybe 2008 when we were like 13, I think 12 or 13 years old. It was back in Donetsk in Ukraine. And since then, we actually got a lot of stuff together. We went after this school, we went together to the same university in Ukraine for a year. Then we got accepted to the same university in France, in Strasbourg. Then we both got accepted for like the full year, the last bachelor year exchange in England, and we went there, though in different universities. And I think after this, we got into different universities for our master's degree, but we, I think, kept being really, really close. So, and I think we have really up to the stage of NewsCatcher, we have me and my co-founder have really kind of similar path. So we both got quite excited about math and statistics. We've been studying economics. So we didn't have any computer science degree. I think the only The only time we had anything related to like computers and stuff was the Visual Basic course in in Strasbourg. And then in master's degree we studied like econometrics slash data science. So Maxim, it was more like they actually called it data science. My university, Toulouse School of Economics, called it econometrics and statistics, which I think is fair. It's all about like statistics and math. So after my first year at my first master's year in Toulouse, I found an internship in an insurtech company in Dubai. I was quite excited because that was like fully paid. Usually when you find an internship in France, you get paid not even enough to cover your like your room. No, I'm not even talking about the food and transport and stuff. I was like a 3 months, I think, or so internship. And I flew there and I started as like data scientist intern. And I really enjoyed it. So I decided that like I'm not gonna go back from masters two, which I think is also quite not so important, especially if you wanna get your career in tech. So I stayed there. It was a super like small company. I'd say like the only one like writing something in Python, and I had a lot of like autonomy there, so I really liked it. I stayed there. They gave me like an okay offer to stay full time with them, and I started actually having my real work that I enjoy. And I think I still remember the day when I used to code in R. For those who don't know, R is like a programming language for academia doing like statistics. It was really popular 10 years ago, I think, in data science and stuff, and it got like super quickly output by Python. Everyone went to Python, and I remember I was writing everything in R, and me and Maxime, we are like we never had a course, so we just like I think we've been using something like I think it's called Data Camp. That's where we were studying, like kind of trying to pick up some knowledge on programming. So long story short, I also started writing code in Python, and about 2 years in, I realized there was not much more for me to do in this company, so I decided to quit. And it was like February, I think February 2020, when everyone was talking like this big flu is coming, but nothing to worry about. That's when I decided to submit my quit notice, and I agreed to stay until the April. Long story short, in April, everything already got pretty heavily locked down, like lockdown mode in Dubai. So I actually had to find like an evacuation flight to Ukraine. And then when we basically in late 2019, early 2020, that's when I started working on actually something that I only wanted to build because it was technically interesting and had nothing to do with actually building a company, nor with like solving someone's problem, to be honest. And I asked Maxime to join me. I had some early like architectural design. I was in startup school, in YC startup school. We got some AWS credits, so we just had like the basic start like YC and Paul Graham essays to guide us. We had a simple idea. I quit my job. I saved a bunch of money, so I didn't have to work anywhere. Maxime was working part-time after his like full-time job on this, and that's basically how we started NewsCatcher. We had two kind of technical co-founders at the beginning with actually no technical background, so we were picked up everything ourselves. It's our first venture, and someone had to actually talk to users. We weren't that dumb, so I took kind of the role of like, okay, I'm gonna do like the CEO role, and Maxime took the CDO role, and we operate the same way since then.
Nice. And can you give us a bit more details about the idea validation stage? So when you have this idea, so how did you validate and made sure that there is some demand or for this idea and that it can be converted into a viable product?
So that's a super good question, and this is like one thing that I would advise to anyone, especially people who love writing code and do something, is to, before you do something, to actually validate it. And sometimes what I'm trying to explain to people right now, as I understand a bit more, is that you don't have to have anything written down. You don't have to write any code before you can even sell something. If you find people with like a super hot and urgent problem, they can even like pay you money simply on the promise that you can deliver something. which is a really rare thing someone does. And we are actually the same. Like I said, we actually technically we didn't have to validate anything because it wasn't. We were just building like the API, and we like just said like, okay, it's technically interesting. Yeah, we actually thought about like, okay, we should have some users, we should have some people, but we never thought about like, we, to be fairly honest with you, we weren't even like solving our problem. We didn't have this problem. Like actually, News API existed. There's like a big website, the website you Google News API, and there's the first website, newsapi.org. We just simply wanted to like copy what they've built. So we didn't have anything like that. And actually, I've just checked my very first YC application, and I think the assumption that I made there, which is also quite, I think, not so intelligent, is like News API that exists right now, they suck because they're like way too expensive, and they used to cost like same as now, like $400 a month or something like this. And so I thought like, I'm gonna build it cheaper, which is something that also you should never do. You should, if you do something, you actually, it doesn't sound, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but you actually need to build something and price it more. I think I wasn't surprised when I learned that Stripe, when they just launched, they like were charging 50% more than the industry, but simply because they said like, look, we are doing better quality. So you need to charge actually more and deliver, like charge 50% more and deliver 200% more quality. Well, we didn't have any of that. So we just said like, look, we are like the coolest, like developer friendly people. We're going to build it and we're going to like prove to everyone that we can like sell it for $29 a month or something like this. And like, I think my assumption was that like, oh my gosh, there's like million of people who want to pay us $29 a month because like, I don't know, they need this News API and they just like, it's for something really, really small that I can chip in $29 a month and probably that's going to work. So when we started, few things that was super, super important, I think, and that we really helped us a lot is the YC mottos, such as like launch fast. So we knew that we don't like, there was like million different stuff that we can do, that how we can improve. Even like on the day zero, we knew that there were like a lot of stuff, but we said to ourselves like, we need to launch it on the 1st of April. So it was like less than 2 months since we like actually decided we're going to do that. And we actually done it. And we actually wrote a blog post. I think you can find it, like if you go to newsketchapi.com and you go to our blogs, you can see how we've built our MVP on AWS, where we actually do a diagram and we write down everything. And while we've been doing that, I also had a kind of an idea to open source a simple Python package that would help people get the latest news from pretty much any website. An idea was that it's going to work quite magically. You just download this package. You just say, I want the latest news from NewYorkTimes.com, and it actually returns you them. And I wrote, I think like less than 100 lines of code in Python with SQLite in it, where I basically had like two columns SQL table where I had New York Times and I had New York Times RSS feed link, and I had like all the websites and all the RSS feeds, because we've been building our MVP out of the RSS feeds. So I just got it all there, and then like there's like a feed parser library, and I just said like, okay, basically you say New York Times, I already know the RSS feed, we just fetch it and like we give it to you, and everyone can run it locally. It just gives you the latest headlines. It doesn't give you all this metadata that we do right now, but it's like really cool. And like I just thought like, wow, no one actually thought about that. It was our first like open source project, and it actually got super viral. Kind of, I think I just recently checked, like we got on like subreddits on like programming, data science. We had like hundreds, I think probably over 1,000 of upvotes. I think right now we have like in total over like 3,000 actually stars on GitHub, even though I don't maintain it at all. I haven't been reading any code for like a few years. But early on, that what's actually kept us really motivated. Not actually the stuff that we've been building like as a full service News API, but the fact that there were like so many developers that actually loved like this. And I think that what's got us into thinking like, look, that is cool. Which is also really wrong, I think, for everyone. I think I know myself a lot of examples where 1 million free users can easily convert into 0 paid users. So there's a really big difference between like what people want for free and what people actually ready to pay for. But I bet that was what kept us really motivated, and we launched our MVP. We had a simple website where we had like basically, okay, we're building a News API, leave your email, and we're gonna contact you when we're gonna do that. And we actually delivered on the 1st of April, and then we said like, look, the full version is going to be ready on 1st of June. And we had 2 more months to basically like polish everything to like the most that we can without also spending much money, because we had like $3,000 on AWS credits. And it was our like first time honestly working with any cloud provider. We built everything in like kind of serverless using SQS, Lambda functions, and DynamoDB, and it actually worked. It worked pretty well. So yeah, we kind of said like we're gonna launch it. We're gonna launch it on 1st of June. A few things that were like super important for us, I think, to why we actually decided doing all this. There were like two things that happened. One is me and Maxime really don't like any front end. It's not like we don't like it. It's just like it's super complex, and I still agree. This is like much. I know like many people who want to start the career in tech, they want to go to like front end, and they think it's like much easier because like backend is like writing code, but like backend doesn't change. Like can say the same 10 years. Like people can like check like code that was written 10 years ago, and they were like, yeah, that's like, I understand that front end changes like every month. There's like new frameworks. It's really hard. It's like it really has to work on everything. So we really didn't like it, and we loved data. So I think I remember reading this blog by Oren Hoffman, the CEO of SafeGraph right now, and ex co-founder of LiveRamp, and he wrote this data as a service Bible, everything you wanted to know about running a data business. And it actually described everything. And I was like, wow, it's really cool. We like, me and Maxime, we're like data geeks. We don't like front end of any kind. Actually, build an API that could like let developers get like data. It's really cool. And this data is like basically scraped and aggregated from like millions of different web pages, like all over the web. So we really love this. So we said like, good, we don't need a front end. We just need to find some kind of builder to like, have the landing page for it. We're going to build all the stuff. And the second part is like, we really, really didn't know how we can build the whole subscription and billing system. And we found out about something that's marketplace that's called Rapid API. They basically did a marketplace, which is up to date. I think that's still like one of the most like buggiest things I've ever seen. But they basically said like, look, we're going to take care of everything for you. We're just going to take 20% cut out of it, which is like, yeah, fine, we don't care. 20% of nothing is still nothing. And they basically said like, just disconnect us, give us one like API endpoint, and like we're gonna make sure that we distribute all of this among your users, and you can even create your specific plans, and you can host it on our marketplace. So like actually people can just find it and use it. Which is like great. We don't need to build any like front end. We don't need to build any kind of billing system or nothing, not even like Stripe, nothing. And the last one is, we also don't have to incorporate. We can just run it as like, just one of us being like a kind of self-entrepreneur, basically. And that's how we went through our launch. We launched it on 1st of June. And I think we promised like 30% discount to people who were like signed up on beta. So we launched. It wasn't like launch is usually what launch is. Nothing happens. But I was really proud that we actually delivered on the fact that like we said like, okay, we're going to deliver it on the 1st of June, and we actually delivered this on the 1st of June. Well, obviously no one showed up with their money saying like, please sell it to us. But fortunately, we didn't expect that. So that was okay. But I still remember my first sale. I was talking to the guy. I think he was a student in the US working on some side project, and they actually needed that. And he said like, yeah, you told me like 30% off. And I think I sold them like the access for like $18, 18 something a month. I was on a call with him, and I said like, yeah, cool. Like go to Rapid API, and like you should see your key and everything you can pay. And they signed up. I didn't ask them any kind of questions that I usually ask right now to understand like everything. But that was my first sale. And funny story, those guys got accepted to Winter 24 batch. So they're right now in YC. I just saw it. I saw it on LinkedIn, and I was like, I know those guys from somewhere. And I wrote to them like, hey guys, I think like you are the actually first people who gave me some money. Congratulations on being at YC. So that's how we launched and how we got our very first like customer.
No, that's super interesting. And sort of you talked about the idea, and then you also talked a little bit about the product. But I just want to touch base a little bit. You sort of gave a sense of how you got some popularity on Reddit and all of that. But did you deliberately talk to some prospective users? Did you know the use cases for this product?
No, we didn't know. We didn't know anything, and I think we thought like, okay, there was like definitely people in media monitoring in PR needed. We also thought about like risk intelligence, something which I don't really know what. But we really didn't know anything. We just thought like, I don't know what we thought about. But yeah, it was really, it's like really like everything we did is almost word by word, line by line, like how not to start a company. And one thing you need to understand on why it worked out because like I could survive without like getting any revenue. Maxim had his full-time job. So we've been like, and actually we didn't like, we didn't have any like urgency kind of in it because we thought like, well, we're gonna try. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it worked well, at least we actually tried. Oh, and then to how we got there, I think there was like someone told me is like, I think it was actually Dalton from YC who said like just like surviving long enough is sometimes enough to actually outlive your competitors and outlive like and actually find something useful. So that's actually that's what we did. Like we didn't spend much money on it. It was just out there. Big mistake. I never tried to do any outbound outreach. We were like trying to think like we're gonna do everything inbound, which is actually still something that works for us. But I definitely should have gone to like actually talking to real users, understanding how and why they need it. But yeah, we didn't have any use case. And I think one thing we really had to do early on is like to pick one use case on top of like the data we have and try to deliver kind of on that. But we decided to like a different path into like, look, okay, we actually, so the assumption we still have is that like companies and companies that I talk to right now, companies that like pay me 6 digits per year for like getting access to the data, they all I think start to realize how much easier it is sometimes if you have a really big problem to build something in house with build your own UI. You just need the right data, and you need to just to like in a shape that like actually your like operations or like your analysts or your customers need. That it's actually like really it's like cheaper and it's like much better, much better value and much better quality if you actually just like build your like control tower, let's say, in house. And a lot of companies start to switch there, where they actually one of the questions I get asked a lot, mostly by like investors, or like I was asked by like, for example, people in YC is like, oh, do you have like a user interface? And I was saying like, yeah, no, we don't have it. And not just because we really don't like user interface, but mostly because like no one actually need it. It's like people come to us because they don't need another like website to log in. They don't need another UI. They're actually trying to build everything in-house. And so they're trying to aggregate all this data from different points and build something themselves, and like build something that actually like fits like a glove and is a perfect fit to the problems that they have. But we always say like, look, if one day someone would need like UI, we're probably going to build it. But that's the thing, like data, you can shape it exactly to the format that like your customers need. And one thing I realize, and I actually like tell it to my like prospect and customers, like, look, like if you don't have this data, like trust me, even if I send it to you in a CSV file, you're gonna be happy. Like people gonna actually get happy. Like they don't care about the shape, they don't care about like your like whether you have your self-serve or like platform or anything. They actually want just to see like not to miss, let's say, important news for them. And if you do it, like they don't really care about like what shape it is. So even if they don't have a massive data science like engineering department, but they like go directly to us and say like, we just need those news, and we just like, and they ask how you can deliver it to us. They're like, well, technically whatever you want, but like first let's actually make sure that we can find that we have those like news that you need, and we can analyze them in the way that you need. And then like I'm usually like, it's never a question of like how it's going to look like. People usually get like satisfied for whatever it's like, whatever the look is. Like it can be like just a CSV file. Yeah.
Nice. Now let's talk about the sales and customers and market. So let's get sort of help us understand. So can you just give us a sense of who are your customers right now? So I've seen some big names. So just give us a sense of, are these enterprise customers, or mid-market or SME or just individual users? Give us a sense of the cohort of customers that you have, and how did you acquire them, if you can add a bit more specifics.
Sure. So I think let me maybe start with like through the history of like what happened post launch, and what we're doing right now. Like it's probably I'm gonna say who is our ideal customer, and who we serve right now and how we got there. So we were just like surviving long enough. Talking to, I think our first big customer was one of the like big four consulting groups. They just have a problem, like they needed to cover some news or websites in Asia Pacific, and we just said like, yeah, we can do that. Send us the website that you need, and we're gonna make sure that we cover them. And they were like starting paying us $900 a month, which was by the end of 2020 the biggest deal we have. I think it was like more than 50% of our revenue, of our MRR. By this time, by the end of 2020, Maxim started, like I somehow convinced him to start working on this full time. Basically, the whole 100% of revenue went to like Maxim's like pay his like we were kind of like ramen profitable to some extent at this point. And we've been just like surviving. We applied again for the third time, I think, to YC. We applied to Alchemist Accelerator, and we applied to Tiny Seed. So Tiny Seed is like a small year-long program for kind of bootstrappers. They give you like a small, relatively to the industry, like small check, and basically like the whole year, like when you like with your peers, it's a fully remote thing. So we get accepted to actually to Tiny Seed. And after that, we also got actually our first invitation ever to YC. So it was our third application to YC. We were, by the first half of 2021, we had like 4K MRR, something like that, or 3.5. We still didn't know what we are doing. And we got to YC, and we got to the interview, and we had probably one of the like, I don't know, it went really bad. So after that, I told Maxim like, okay, there is no way we're gonna get this. But then we received an email saying like, look, we'd like another group of YC partners like to interview you. So fortunately, I think the people who were interviewing us were also like, okay, there's just no connection. So yeah, I don't remember what exactly happened there, but I remember all questions had no like, I mean, they were like questions, valid ones, but like probably not what I would want to answer. And so we got another interview. I think the only person I remember from there was the only person who then called me. It was Brad Flora. And the thing is, we already took a decision that we're not going to go to YC because we accepted Tiny Seed, even though I think we could do it like together. We just decided it's probably YC is a bit too early for us, which I think was actually a good call. And yeah, so we actually got accepted to YC for summer 21, and we had to decline. We just had to say like, and actually I remember this discussion with Brad, and Brad was like, what, like, where are you going? I said like, you like, there's no way you know. And I said like, it's Tiny Seed. And Brad was like, oh yeah, one of my like really close friends is going to be with you in the same batch. And actually we ended up like with Tony being in the same batch. So we basically started doing Tiny Seed. And I think for the year of Tiny Seed, which is like 2021, first half of 2022, we just like, try to focus on like inbound, on having like at this stage our price like obviously was like a bit higher, not $29 a month, it was like 400 I think bucks, $399 a month. And we just basically try to say like, look, we're gonna build like a clean data, like a good API that like many developers are able to use. It's gonna be self-serve, so people can take an API key, can try making some calls, and probably they like sometimes they even gonna convert into like $400 a month without like any single interaction with us. And that's what we like kind of what we started working on. So we didn't change that much. We didn't have any marketing. We were still just like two guys in a shed. Summer 2021, like two big kind of players came, like really enterprise ones. I quoted them something they said like kind of okay, and there was still like data scientists. So I really didn't know even like what companies doing with this data, but it basically started to like pick up enterprise customers, and we just like incorporated in the US. And yeah, we just tried to do anything they kind of want. Oh yeah, at this stage we signed with a big company like 80K contract, our biggest contract up to date. And we signed, it was like signed by, it's like a big company, model, like they're like, I think there are over like probably 1 million people working there, like 500,000 people. And like the like SVP of procurement of like US signed it. And we were like super happy. We celebrated. I think we celebrated 2 or 3 times. And then one day, the guy whose department had to pay for it, he was like, "Oh, why does it cost like so much?" I was like, "Shit." And they basically said like, "I don't have this money. Like, we cannot fund it." And obviously, you're not gonna like try to argue with them. So we still have this contract. It's like signed and everything, but they pay us like 6 times or like 7 times less than that. So we were just like going on the same way. We started to like we actually had our first hire. It was Aditya. He first came as like a freelance part-time content writer, and right now he's doing like customer success, product developer advocate, and everything. So we were like doubling down on like inbound. We had, I think by the time we reapplied to next YC batch, which was summer 22, we had about 20K MRR. And the split was of this 20K MRR, I think, is a few big customers who paying us like 20, 30, 40K a year, and a bunch of those $399 per month, which is like super high churn. We don't really know what they do. They probably underpay us. But it was like 20K MRR. It's something you can actually live off. And we actually had a pretty decent growth. We went from like 3.5K MRR to like 22K MRR. And we decided to reapply to YC. And so we reapplied to YC, and we got super lucky because I think we got the coolest person I know out of YC as the main group partner, who was like Michael. And we had an interview, and actually I didn't spend like almost any time to like fill in the application. There was a lot of going on. There was a war in Ukraine, in our home country. We just like, I was like on the go all the time. But despite, we said like, look, we're gonna just apply. We're just gonna spend like 1 hour like filling in the application. And fortunately, we got to an interview. We got interviewed, and Michael said like, well, guys, you're in. So we got accepted. We got accepted again. And we decided to go to Summer 22. And I think that's when we kind of realized our first call with our group partner, with Michael, was basically like 1 month before the batch starts. And he was like asking really, really simple questions, which like probably no one asked before. For some reason, it was like, so what are you like doing? Are you doing like enterprise? And we were like, at this point, like, yeah, we think like enterprise is basically sales is like what we have to focus on. And he's like, okay, and how do you get your customers? And we're like, well, it all goes like kind of inbound and stuff. And he was like, well, that's nice, but it doesn't really work. So I think he said like, you need to go like outbound. You actually need to like learn how to do sales. And our goal by the beginning of the batch was like to find 4 pilots for I think like 4K or like something like this. Like, so to find 4 pilots for enterprise customers. And so that's what we started to do. And throughout the YC, we went from 300K ARR to like 450K ARR. I actually had to like do a lot, like everything I could to like sign. We signed our biggest contract. I actually had to like just go and actually meet with a customer to actually shake his hand and say like, we have a deal, which was pretty cool. We didn't go to the US. Actually, I've never been to the US. We stayed like, it was still a remote, mostly remote batch. So we started doing like kind of enterprise sell, and surprisingly, having like 450K ARR back then, I think like we still didn't know what we were doing. And we still don't know it this much right now. But I think we are over 1 million ARR right now. We still have, after YC, we were fundraising. We knew that we actually don't need money. We like defaulted live. And I knew I don't want to spend time on this, because like thinking that I have to spend like even 2 weeks on that was like super big for me, like not worth it. So fortunately, we found great investor from Uncommon Capital, Jamie Quint, who was also like YC alum, I think. So anyway, we raised in 2 days. We raised, I would say, relatively small round. We raised less because we didn't want to like dilute much, and we didn't need to raise a lot. But we raised less than and on low evaluation that many people I know with no prior experience, no revenue, no product, like nothing. Well, but I was really happy, and I'm still thinking it's like one of the most successful stuff we've done. We like closed it in like 2 days. We found like the big check that we needed. We just had to meet with like a great angels who also Jamie connected us with. So that was like kind of, we raised money. We still have the most of the money we raised in our bank account. We try to keep the burn really low. We try to really not overhire people and grow like as our customers kind of trying to need us. And we still do a lot of stuff that don't scale, which is we trying to really change this year. Right now, out of like probably what you've seen on our website, we work with a lot of customers. A lot of them are really big companies. The majority of them, obviously, unfortunately, we cannot go public with. But I think those that we kind of like, we have the work with U.S. Department of State. We work with Freepoint. I'm just trying to think about everyone who I can name. Actually, work with a bunch of YC startup. Axis is one of our first big customers from, I think, Winter 21, and Michal, the CEO, is also our angel investor. So we work with people in like with different governments. We recently signed another government big kind of contract. We work with like some central banks. We work with logistics companies. We work with cybersecurity companies. We work with, well, a lot of companies that actually doing something unique. Some companies that doing like sales intelligence tools. We work with companies who are like just big consulting companies and they need to do something. But I think what unites people in our ICP, in our ideal customer profile, is usually companies that for whatever business reasons have to stay on top of news. And those could be really, really different types of news. For example, a client of ours, a real estate private equity firm, they would really love to know about any kind of infrastructure development happening in the US, because if there is a new metro line that is going to get opened in a specific town, at this area, probably like the prices for the flat, for the houses are going to go up because like the area is going to get like just better accessible. Or they want to know all the news about the latest regulations, legislation, bills and stuff that could affect the market. Or we can work with, I don't know, let me try to think about some cool examples. Well, there are some obvious ones like media monitoring and like companies building like tool for PR representatives. They obviously need to like always monitor media. But another private equity actually, who one of the things is, which I think is really cool for them, is the only way for them to get data is like through news. What they need to know is they need to know when a restaurant is going to be open before it actually opens. And actually the only kind of sustainable, the only like the best way they were able to find it, this information, is through like really hyper local news. And we have them. And they have like 12 people, 12 analysts that like daily have to go through those news. So you can imagine like how much money they spend, how not really effective it is. So some of them think about that and say like, look, probably we can just like automate all of that, and we could stop spending hundreds of hours or actually manually checking those news, because people are like error prone, they could miss something, and it's like honestly expensive. I was talking to one customer who's like a big law firm, and they basically have lawyers who have to do that. So you know how lawyers are expensive. So obviously, if you're a law firm, you definitely don't want your lawyers to spend time on like manually going through the news, because what this law firm is offering is like they offer to their customers like the package where like, look, we're gonna stay on top of the any kind of regulatory stuff changes that could affect your business. And they probably charge them for all these hours they spend like manually. So people come to us and basically say like, hey, can we use your API, or can you actually help us build a feed that would only contain the news articles that we have? And there is like a ton of details in it, such as not having duplicates, not having false positives, and doing like all this stuff to make sure that like I'd say the key for us is like the integration, whether the customer can just like get this data in a shape or format that they need. And I think that is like what was crucial for us to understand, and what was really why we had bad conversion kind of rates, is because like there's still a huge gap between like an API that can give you access to over a billion of news articles and finding only the news articles that you need. Even if we have all the best filters on the planet, there is like a big gap. And I wanted to say something and I forgot what I wanted to say. But yeah, basically, I remembered. What happens with people when they get this idea, usually they come and they find a news API and they go from not having zero like automated search and stuff, because they probably use like Google Trend, Google Alerts or something like this, like going through Google News, and they need to be here. And they basically use the news API and they go over the roof with like a ton of like not relevant stuff, a lot of noise. And they basically like, okay, we actually know that you have articles that we need, which is great. The only problem is like this is 1 out of 50. There are like 49 articles. So it basically becomes counterproductive to use this service, because like, okay, you had 0 automated, now you have 50 times more than you would probably need. And once I think we realized that like, okay, there are companies who like, to whom we can save at least $500,000 to like $5 million a year by automating their like manual news analysis approach. And once we realized that like we actually need to go like an extra mile into making everything perfect for them. So and we do stuff that, like I said, like that doesn't really scale. So we do a lot of like really custom deployments for our customers. But once we've done that, we realized like how we can actually like we could calculate the ROI for customers who even like pay us 6 digits. Because like, okay, you need like $1 million to build this just to collect this data. Then you need to like maintain it. Then you need to host it. And like, look, right now you spend $1 million on like those people manual time. We're gonna like reduce it by 10, so you're gonna save 900K here. So once we realized that, it was really much easier also to see like some customers who definitely something is wrong because they don't understand, because like they just like, oh, why is it like so expensive? And I'm like, hey man, like you spending 2 million a year, your company spent 2 million a year on this, like isn't that expensive? But it's still like, I think I find it really hard sometimes to like convince and to like explain to people that like, okay, you pay people for time. Like they think it's already there, which is true sometimes. But companies, for example, that actually outsource the people from somewhere, they like just have it as like, okay, look, we paid like $10,000 to some people somewhere to actually go manage through the news. But yeah, that I think the most important stuff that we realized. And I'm up to date. I'm the only kind of account executive, and we're just hiring our first one. We are hiring for the account executive, aka someone who actually going to close the lead. And we're going to hire the customer success, which is also, I also don't understand how we still survive without customer success, because we have over 20 super big customers. A lot of them with like really a lot of custom approaches that we have. We try to do and make it the cool way where engineers talk directly to customers, which is I find it super important. But at some point you actually need to say like, look, okay, we do an enterprise sale, like people paying us a lot of money, they expect this service, we always deliver it to them. I'd say like why clients stay with us is because like how great of this support we have, and how much more we actually like we over deliver to them. So I think that is something like really important in the enterprise kind of sales. Because also usually there, what I realized also quite recently is like, I'd say company buys you as a company, as a group of people, as much as the product. So like the great product but like shitty people, which is like some of our competitors, like a big old companies they kind of like say like, look, it's not really flexible, we don't like working with them. And they like working with us because we're just saying like, look, we're gonna get you covered, and like you don't have to worry if there is something that like you didn't think ahead. If we already have it, we're just gonna add it to you for free. It's like we're gonna basically, once you become a customer, we're gonna charge you extra only for how much we need to spend. So we just like break even off on any kind of new feature that we add for you.
Nice. And, we're almost at the end. We have a couple more sections. And one of the questions that I get from a lot of the listeners is, what does a typical enterprise sales process look like? So could you just walk us through the stages of how you first come in contact with these prospective customers to closing them? If you can give us a stages of what goes into that process, I think that'll be a a great benefit for a lot of the listeners.
Yeah. So I think I can answer that right now. Our stages are usually intro call, where we just try to qualify the lead, try to probably tell them a range of the prices, see if they have a big enough problem, see if they can kind of adopt the data, so to make sure that like they kind of qualify. And then the stages are usually, in ideal world, they go to like intro, demo. What's the next one? So we have let me open my pipeline. I actually gonna tell you how we name them, because that's actually quite interesting. Okay, I'm going to opportunities. Okay, so let's say we started the intro call, then we go to the demo call, then we either go into like and then you can have like multiple demo calls with multiple stakeholders. Then also we can go to like the free trial period, where we give them some access, and they actually like, we try to really limit it to like a week or two at most, for them to try it out. And then we have the proposal review call, and after that, hopefully there is like we got kind of like the purchase order. We have like everything in place to actually get us onboarded as a vendor. The most things obviously happens in this like intro, demo, and testing stages. One thing that we do, that we also think is true, but I'm not sure, is that we actually have the middle out sales, because usually the people who come to us are like CTO or product, or like a developer, and in a lot of cases those are nor the people who gonna use us nor the decision makers. So basically, usually if the product comes and say like, hey, for example, I have like analysts that need to like, for whatever reason, let's say like find articles about new restaurants, let's say opening in town, and I ask them like, how does the process look like, and they say, how does the buyer journey look for me, and they say like, well, I need to like I need analysts to test to validate that you have the data we have, and after that I also need validation from my like CEO of like, or like VP of finance, or like chief financial officer, or like CTO, to actually get the budget. So this creates, I would say, a lot of, it's not so easy when you cannot. And usually like, I'm doing trying all my best to actually get the decision maker on call and like in contact with me. Sometimes I usually don't, then I do, but I'm trying to get them on the call in contact with me, but usually don't have it, which is okay. CEO of the company doesn't have time, CFO doesn't have time. So usually you need, what you're trying to do is like, you really need to make sure that your point of contact, the product person, for example, is your like internal champion, and that they can actually translate all this information that they got from you to the like CEO, CFO, basically say like, look, this is the right thing for us. That's why it costs so much, and like we really have to proceed with it. So that's kind of what we are doing. But sometimes we talk directly to the decision makers. Sometimes I once went from intro call to from inlet onboarding call in one call, basically. But usually these sales cycles, another Liz Vassell, she used to be the visiting group partner for us in YC, she said like, you have to do it under 30 days, which is when you are in YC, you really try to do. But typically, I think, I don't have the exact number, but big contracts for like six digits with big companies can take months, just because big companies can't operate as fast as startups, and there is nothing you can do with it, honestly. So you just need to go through all those meetings and producing all those quotes and documents and stuff to make sure that someone actually like gets the approval. But usually we usually try to get some hint from your person, like what's going on, how can I help you, whether it's like gonna pass or not, and they usually keep you up to date with that. But you kind of don't know. Okay, I have a few minutes left, if that's fine.
Awesome. Yeah, I think. What's your current ARR right now, Artem?
I think it's about 1.3 million right now, and we are aiming to 3 million by the end of this year, which is, I think, is doable, but also like, and we know how to get there. But yeah, so we had 1.3 mil, and So we are not planning to raise like Series A or any other stuff right now. And yeah, we are at 1.3 mil. I still don't think we have product market fit. So, and we still don't know a lot of stuff about what we do, and we still need to optimize a bunch of stuff, which is like really exciting. As Jamie Quinn said to me, he said like that's how good sign looks like. Because if like when everything is on fire, you don't have like time for everything and you're growing, that's a good sign, because basically there is a lot of room for optimization and there is like a lot of room to like do something better. And I actually realized that I know a lot of startups, I know a lot of founders who have really good like playbooks, who have everything like in place. They know every single detail about who does what, and they like don't grow. So because usually like probably they solve like the wrong kind of problem. They focus on the wrong things. And I think like for pretty much a long time you should focus on just talking to people and just trying to make something for them. And then probably one day you'll realize that like, okay, that's like when like also like as Michael, I think Michael Siebel said once, is like when you hit the product market fit, you know it, like it's really hard to miss it. So I think we're really close, but we are not there yet. Yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't think when we started like 4 years ago as like a simple side project, I wouldn't think we'd get to this stage.
No, yeah, congratulations. I think you seem to be headed certainly in a good direction. Well, I really appreciate you being on this pod and sharing all your valuable insights. Good luck, and really, really appreciate your time again. And yeah, thank you for being on the pod.
And thanks for having me.
Uh,
Thank you.
Thanks.